Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Happy Friday, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in for this divisional preview. Divisional round of the NFL playoffs kicks off on Saturday. Sorry for no episode coming out on Thursday. Things just got a little busy with Ziggy traveling back from Cambodia. Jack had some things to do, and ultimately it wound up being better to push the show to Friday and doing a solo record here. And I know that kind of pushes us right up against the games being played and shortens the window. So if you're watching this video, I do appreciate you checking it out. Again, if you can like, comment, subscribe. We're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers. It's going to be close. It's in jeopardy before the Super Bowl. So if you could hit that subscribe button, it would really help us as we've hit a little bit of a wall here toward the end of the season. But this should be a great weekend of football. It's always a fun one. I've been seeing a ton of pictures and videos about you remember the 13-second year with Mahomes and Allen, and that was the year the Bengals went in and beat the Titans, and the Packers lost on the blocked field goal or blocked punt against the 49ers. This round typically has some high drama. I remember the Minneapolis Miracle, right? That was just the other day. Fox posted, I think it's the 8-year anniversary of that play, right? Because I was a freshman in college. So yeah, 8 years ago. Geez, I'll never forget. I have to post it on our channel, just running around the house screaming, "Oh my God," over and over and over again. Just unbelievable. When you have those kind of games, you have to enjoy them. And I know a lot of our friends who are Bears fans are relishing in that moment against the Packers last week. And now, they got the Rams coming in and with a chance to go to the NFC Championship game. Just, it's fun when you have these big games. So towards the end of the show today, I'll talk a little bit about Harbaugh and Tomlin. Very different exits for two very legendary coaches in the National Football League. Indiana, Miami, briefly, I want to tell you why, despite being big favorites, Indiana could be in a little trouble. Not for any actual football reason, but I fear there could be some devil magic at hand, and I'll tell you why. And again, I appreciate you guys taking the time to just be with this channel, right? I was on Netflix last night, and I'm seeing, they just got into sports podcasting a lot. I'm seeing previews for 3 and Out, right? The Volume Show with John Middlecoff. There's Part of My Take, Bill Simmons, and a couple that I didn't even know the names of. And I just started thinking to myself, oh my gosh, man, this sports media market is just completely oversaturated, the podcasting world. And it's weird for me to say that as someone who, right, would be considered one of the people oversaturating the markets, someone who's not on television, someone who's not a former athlete doing a show. I like to think that we got in a little bit earlier in 2021, before the boom of podcasts, before YouTube really got into it. We were putting out episodes, and yeah, those episodes were not good. We've seen a couple of people have gone back and listened to them. It's a tough look for me and the guys, but I like to think we got in ahead of the game. And now, you just look across the entire landscape, and everyone and their mother has a podcast. I feel like when if I'm listening to a show on Spotify, getting an advertisement for a new one about, the history of the Dallas Cowboys, or the history of the NBA in 1972, and it's just, everything's so specific. Every single person seems to have a show, and I don't know. I don't really personally like it, but I think we have reached the point too where, especially when it comes to athletes, the athletes who are good at it are going to keep having podcasts. But when everyone has one, not everybody's going to be great in front of a microphone. And those are the guys who are probably going to start to wane off a bit. It'll have to at some point get back to a more reasonable number. But at this point in time, you see companies like Netflix dishing out money. If you're a random NBA, NFL, whatever player, of course you're going to start a podcast. It's just like you got 30 minutes spare time. I know in hockey, right? The Kachuk brothers, one of my friends is their producer. The Kachuk brothers just hop on, talk like two brothers, like the Kelseys, right? Once a week. It's fun. It's easy. And if you're going to get millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on who it is, why not do it? So I really do appreciate everybody tuning into this show when, we may not have the pedigree of some of these other podcasters out there. And there's just so much in front of you. It's insane. There are just so many ads for Netflix podcasters. But you know what? It's good for the industry overall if everyone's pushing it like this. I just think at some point in time, we're going to have to see less and less because it's just completely overdone. But anyway, we're supposed to be talking about the divisional round of the playoffs. And the way I want to do this preview is not jump game by game and just really break down, X's and O's. I think it'd be more fun to do, the top 4 contenders for the Super Bowl right here. There are 4 teams to me who can actually win the Super Bowl. And look, when you get to the divisional round, anything's possible. I'm not going to say I'm ruling out anybody, but I'm pretty close to saying none of the other 4 teams are actually going to win. And I'll go 4-1 too. We'll start at number 4 with the Seattle Seahawks. And before you start yelling, I know we have a couple of Seahawks listeners, before you start yelling at your radio or your phone saying like, what the hell, Paul, we're the 1 seed in the NFC, just take a step back here, all right? Number 4 contender is a pretty good spot to be, right? And I'm still putting you on that list of teams that can go all the way. And when you look at Seattle overall, not many holes on this roster. This is a very good football team. From where they were at the start of the year, with everyone thinking, okay, maybe Darnold could get them to the playoffs, maybe a wild card, right? The Rams are going to win the NFC West. To being the 1 seed is just a sensational turnaround. Sam Darnold made everyone in Minnesota regret letting him go. I know he hasn't been great recently since week 11. He's 27th in QBR, which is not good. And now he has the oblique injury, which there's just no way he's not going to play in this football game. It's the biggest game of Sam Darnold's life. He will be playing in it. But it's another thing just to keep an eye on because we know, and this is the concern with Seattle, the Darnold implosion game. That's what you're waiting for. If you told me right now Sam Darnold is guaranteed to not implode for the rest of the playoffs, Seattle's probably the favorite to win the Super Bowl. But you're just not sure about it. You really can't be. He's had 6 picks against the Rams in 2 games this year. And the Rams were, up until that punt return touchdown in the 4th quarter, in complete control of that game. So Seattle's got a ferocious defense. The number 1 scoring defense in football. They're 6th in total yards allowed. And in this particular matchup with the 49ers, it's one they just had, and it's one they truly just dominated. The final score may have been 13-3, but it wasn't a close game. 361 yards to 173. 23 first downs to 9 first downs for San Francisco. 38-minute time of possession to 22-minute time of possession. This was a dominant performance that was in the clothing of a close game. So I just can't see a world for San Francisco, and this is why they're one of the teams out. I can't see a world with all the injuries. The Philly win was unbelievable. That to me was just as much of Philly imploding this year and Philly being out of sorts and the disruptive locker room and the grit of San Francisco. When you combined everything there, you can't take away how impressive the win was for the 49ers. But to go into Seattle now, there's just not enough on the defensive side of the ball. George Kittle out too now. And I like Brock Purdy. Like, we have these conversations all the time. I really like Brock Purdy. He's not someone who's going to elevate the 49ers when they're missing these pieces. I just don't see it happening. So I got the Seahawks there at number 4. I think they'll win this weekend. I think they'll win comfortably. The spread's 7, I think, right now. They're 7-point favorites. I think they cover that. Number 3. The Buffalo Bills, who I think that I maybe owe the Bills fans a bit of an apology. I picked the Jaguars. I haven't been impressed watching the Bills team most of the year. But when you have the best player in the field, Josh Allen, you have a chance to win games. And they have by far the best quarterback. I love Matthew Stafford, and he's the best quarterback in the NFC to me. But Josh Allen's in another stratosphere. The way he's carrying this team. I mean, when he's dialed in, we're talking about one of the best quarterbacks of all time, right? We're not talking about, when we're talking about Josh Allen, it's not comparing him to CJ Stroud and how he's better than Drake Maye. This is like, we're talking among the Tarkingtons and the Fouts and the Bradshaws. That's the class he's in all time right now. And he's still in his prime. He's still at the peak of his powers. And the game in Jacksonville last week is one that just shows his ability to carry this team, playing hurt throughout the game, right? Multiple times. And he makes that big time throw to Brandon Cooks. Obviously, the quarterback sneaks to win the game, the play that they got stopped on last year against the Chiefs. And this Jaguars team was rolling We're talking about a 13-14 that they went in and beat a Jaguars team. And, when we play the transitive game, things can get a little dangerous. But a Jaguars team that had just gone into Denver and smoked the Broncos. So who's going to sit back here and say that Buffalo, with the best player in the playoffs remaining, can't go in there, maybe even beat up on the Broncos team that has 11 one-score wins this year. And they're not 11 one-score wins over teams like the Patriots or over teams like the Rams. They're one-score wins mostly because they have the Eagles game. That was a great win earlier in the year. Most of their wins are against crappy teams. The Raiders twice, the Chiefs without Mahomes, and they're close games. Outside of the Green Bay game, I can't look at Denver and take them being home is big. But outside the Green Bay game, how many moments have they had where they truly impressed you? Well, they scored 33 points against the Giants in a comeback. Yeah, that's impressive, 33 points. But then you kind of zoom out and you go, oh, they were getting their ass kicked by the Giants. The Giants. So I'm not in on Denver. And I'm going with I'm betting on Josh Allen here. A flawed roster, but one that just beat New England, just won in Jacksonville, and I think we'll go in and take care of Denver. I'm imagining it'll be a close game. Crowd's gonna have a big factor. Denver's not a bad team, right? But by no means, they're the 1 seed. You have to give them respect there. I just like Buffalo now. They're rolling. So I got Buffalo as number 3 contender. Okay. Number 2, the New England Patriots are going to go here. What have they done all year? They've just won. Right? A season where everybody's losing these crazy games, where the Panthers are beating the Rams, a year where the 49ers are upsetting the Eagles with their JV team. One of the consistents has been New England has won. And yes, it's been a cupcake schedule. It really has. And I mean, in the first round, they get the Chargers team that completely flames out in the playoffs, it seems. They win that one. It's closer than the score looks. But they're another team that's pretty complete. And their head coach, Mike Vrabel, one of the best in football right now. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people say top 5 coach. Maybe put him top 10. But the turnaround they've had where, once you get the coach, once you get the quarterback, things change very quickly in the National Football League. Look at all the teams right now who are in the playoffs, right? Immediate change for Ben Johnson and the Bears with Caleb in year 2. Pretty immediate change with Bo Nix and Sean Payton and the Broncos. I mean, a lot of these teams are new to the scene that we're seeing this season. That's a lot of fun. Patriots are one of them, but across the board, up and down, I mean, their defense has been awesome, and you got the hard-nosed Vrabel-led defense. And then offensively, Drake May is going to be second in MVP. And it feels like there's a lack of explosive playmakers, but they're second in the league in plays of 20 plus in passes of 20 plus yards this year. I mean, they're very efficient, and that they're going to show up and play tough football. Now they're playing the Houston Texans, who, speaking of tough football, right? That defense might come in there. There's a world where the Houston Texans come in there and Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, they just get after Maye and rock his world pretty much. That can happen. This Texans defense is legitimate. I've said it time and time again. No unit I trust, probably in the playoffs, more than the Texans unit to show up and dominate. I mean, I just went on a rant about how great Josh Allen is. They sacked him 8 times on Thursday Night Football. They beat the Bills on Thursday Night Football. I don't even think Stroud played in that game. It was probably Davis Mills. What they're doing defensively is no joke. I just think at some point, the lack of offense, and now Nico Collins has a concussion, at some point that just has to catch up to them. Now, if it doesn't, we start talking about this team as this defense as an all-time defense. Because they're excellent already. But if they go on a run here without Nico playing, and the offense, they're scoring more touchdowns than the offense in the playoffs right now. Then we start entering them into a different stratosphere of defenses. So I just think when we're talking about true contenders, the wholeness of the Patriots roster and the consistency with which they performed has to be acknowledged. That's why I'll put them at 2. And the Texans, as great as that unit is on defense, that unit on offense is pretty bad. I mean, it's miserable right now. New England's tough place to play. Unless the Houston defense is scoring, I don't know how many points the Texans are going to put up. So I got New England at 2. Okay, I have them up just above Buffalo in the ranking. I know they were split this year. I know Buffalo just had the big comeback in New England. Again, just the wholeness of the Patriots roster, a little bit above. And number 1, I don't think people will be very surprised because I've been high on them all year long. But I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Rams. And it's fair to point out and say, Paul, they just barely skid past the Panthers in the first round. They just got blasted by the Falcons a few weeks ago. This has not looked like the same team that we thought they were going to be. Maybe around week 10, 11 or so, it was feeling like the Rams were going to be the team to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. And that just didn't happen. They've been up and down, right? They sneak in at the 5. Not sneak in, they're firmly in at the 5. They sneak into the 5 seed, right, with the 49ers falling back. But when you look up and down, they have the second best quarterback in the playoffs, the best in the NFC, and they have by far the best weapons remaining in the playoffs in Puka, Kyren, Devontae. Combine that with Stafford. Talk about trusting the Texans offense. I have a lot of faith in the Texans defense. I have a lot of faith in this Rams offense. And what I keep going back to, the reason they're my number 1 contender is because I look at that Seattle game a few weeks ago and I'm willing to chalk it up as a fluke comeback, not a sign of things to come. And that could be wrong. If Seattle will beat San Francisco this weekend. There's a better chance the Bears beat the Rams than the 49ers beat the Seahawks, to me. But if we wind up with a rematch, Seattle and LA, which is what the spreads would say right now, if we were just going off of Vegas, which clearly this year has not been reliable, I would pick the Rams to go back in there and win. Now you have the Darnold injury news. The Rams are a team that's built to give Seattle troubles. Really strong offense to counteract their defense, right? The quarterback who's not going to make many mistakes, and a pass rush that gets after the quarterback, Sam Darnold, the guy who makes a lot of mistakes. So I just think the Rams are pretty loaded. They have some secondary concerns, but as long as they're not playing Shanahan, and right, they just beat Shanahan this year, McVay's going to have the coaching advantage too. I really like LA there. And this is not, I know keeping the Bears off is something that our listeners are a little more tuned into, right, as an NFC North team. It's not shade at the Bears. A lot of people want to say it's luck this season that's getting them there, and they've had some very lucky moments. But I've talked about this with the Vikings and Denver as well. You have to loop them in on this as well. It's not all luck when you're making the big play when it matters. There is absolutely a degree of skill. There's absolutely a willingness and a mental state, a mental frame of mind that you need to be able to get to in those moments to make the big play, to not make the mistake. Remember when the Bears beat the Raiders, they talked about finding there was something about the Raiders, I think, offensive line, their alignment on their field goal blocking that Chicago saw and actually planned for when they blocked that kick. So to the casual observer, right, someone who's not listening to Bears radio and hearing these things come out, it just looks like the Bears blocked the kick to win the game. Oh, they got lucky. That never happens, right? Oh, they recovered an onside kick against the Packers. That one actually probably was just lucky. But then you hear, okay, they planned to execute this way against Vegas, and they did. And that's how they won that football game. So they've been doing it all year long, and just coming off another, right? It wasn't just one amazing comeback win against Green Bay. It was 2. There's a resilience. They're a very talented team. Their offense is extremely talented. Caleb seems to be finding himself at the right time. Think about the Jaden Daniels ascension last year. That felt like a young quarterback and a younger team getting hot at the right time. The Bears one, I know I said off the top of the show that they're hot in a different way, though. The Bears are on an upward trajectory, it feels like, while the Commanders were more of on a heater, I would say. Chicago, you have to imagine next year they're going to come in and be an even better football team than the one this year. Again, not always something that's reflected in the record. You can be a better team, not have a better record sometimes, depending on your schedule. But the Bears, I don't want to take any credit away from them. I think they're a really good team. They absolutely can beat the Rams. Their defense is a little concerning to me, though. I know they get all the takeaways. I just think Stafford's going to go in there. And then you hear these little nuggets, and Peter Schrager came out. Right? Peter Schrager has had a show before with Sean McVay. He's close with him. And Schrager was talking about how the handshake between Johnson and Matt LaFleur last week did not sit well with the McVay tree. And remember, McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur, Mike McDaniel, they were all together in Washington. Those guys are all really good friends. Who's the offensive coordinator for the Rams? Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur's little brother. So McVay, Mike LaFleur, this Rams coaching staff here, people are not pleased with the way Ben Johnson handled himself after the game. In the locker room, F the Packers, the handshake, all the jabs. Ben Johnson basically just chose war with Green Bay, which is great for the rivalry, by the way. It is awesome for the rivalry. It's better for football when Packers-Bears has some animosity to it, and it's not just Green Bay going in there and beating the crap out of them twice a year. But if you're going to talk shit, there's going to be a target on your back. And now it seems like there's a target on the backs of the Chicago Bears, which is great, again, for Bears fans. This team has been embarrassing for years, and now you have the target on your back. That's a good thing. But it's just something to be a little cautious of going into this game. You don't need any more juice. It's a playoff game, divisional round. You're 3 wins away from being Super Bowl champions. But sometimes that extra motivation can push one team over the line. And I do think the Rams are going to come out there. Not that the Rams are playing for the Packers or anything like that, but in the way McVay coaches and Mike LaFleur is coaching this week, I bet there's a little extra juice to beat Ben Johnson, who likes it. He clearly likes this too, playing the villain role. So it's awesome. I really like that. I really like that side piece of this game. It's really fun, and I'm curious how many times they bring it up on the broadcast, but that should be a lot of fun. So, all right, 4-1, I have Seattle at number 4. I think they beat the 49ers this weekend comfortably. 3, I put the Buffalo Bills, who I think go in and beat the Broncos in a close game. 2, I got the Patriots, probably a defensive showdown. I actually could see it playing out quite similarly to the Charger game, where defensive battle, and then New England is able to put maybe 10 points on the board and separate themselves, where Houston's offense just can't really get going, especially without Nico. And then 1, I have the Rams. But what's amazing about this, and perhaps could be wrong in my reflection, I would probably say most comfortable in Seattle, second most comfortable with the Patriots, and then it would be the Rams. So I think the Rams are one of the 2 teams that is more likely to lose than the other teams I'm confident in here. But I Stafford in the playoffs, I'm not going to be the one to bet against him. I'm not going to do it. Okay. A couple coaching things. Don't want to go too long, but obviously John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin are legendary coaches in the NFL. Harbaugh was in Baltimore 18 years, I believe. Tomlin in Pittsburgh for 19. And the way they left, right, just completely different. And I was really surprised to hear when Tomlin wound up stepping down. I assumed that he was just told, we're going to part ways, but let's make this look like you're leaving on your terms. That's how I imagined it was going to be. It seems like I was completely wrong on that. When you had the reports and the Athletic story coming out on what actually happened in that team meeting, it's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should go read it, because they're talking about Tomlin going into the team meeting room, and he says, when you lose, there's consequences, and I think the best thing right now is for me to step down. And TJ Watt is like sitting in the corner going, no, tearing up. And Joey Porter Jr., they said, is hyperventilating in the room. And all the guys, one by one, get in a line to say goodbye to Tomlin and thank you to Tomlin. And Rodgers is partially sobbing and just saying, I'm sorry. It sounds like if this was a movie, you'd have other people tearing up just watching it. They loved that coach. They loved Mike Tomlin. And then you have Art Rooney II come out, and he's saying, I'm not totally shocked, but I wasn't expecting this. And the way the Rooneys operate, right? They've had 3 coaches, the Steelers. 3 coaches in the Super Bowl era. Like, that's, it's unheard of. Think of the Bears, right? We got Eberflus, Nagy, Trestman. Now you got Johnson, John Fox. It's all in like the past 10 years, 10 to 15 years in Chicago. And the Steelers have just had 3 coaches, all going for like 20 years. It's unbelievable. And something that you have to imagine is not going to continue that way. But, who knows? That's the way they operate. The Tomlin exit was absolutely a Mike Tomlin decision. Not that, and again, I think it's a good thing for the Steelers. I also think it's a good thing for Tomlin. Change can be very hard in anything, but sometimes it is necessary. And sometimes after making that change, when things are in a better place, you look back and you go, yeah, like you still fondly look back on things, but you know that was probably the right decision to make. It worked out well for everyone. And for Tomlin, they've just been so mediocre for so long. And they're not close. They're really not close at all. The problem is, and it's not a Mike Tomlin problem. That's what a lot of people want to keep bringing this back to, saying, oh, Mike Tomlin, 9-8 every year. When Mike Tomlin had Ben Roethlisberger, they were going to the AFC Championship game. They're going to the divisional round consistently. They won a Super Bowl. You need the quarterback in football. You just need the quarterback. A great coach can only do so well without one. Tomlin is a great coach, and the best he could do is get to the wild card round and get trounced. That's what happens when you have Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers without any weapons around him. If the Steelers had a legit supporting cast around Rodgers offensively, I do think they could have made some noise, but they don't. And that's a problem with the way they've been constructed. That's been the problem for Tomlin's Steelers. They just don't have the guy. And even if they have someone who could be the guy, they don't have enough around him within the Rodgers case. It's almost like you have to imagine it kind of like if you have a great racehorse for quarterback, a great racehorse, right, can win a lot of races, especially when you're racing against other horses that are not in your class. You could have any jockey up there and he's still going to win. But then if you enter the Kentucky Derby and you have a jockey up there like me and I have no idea what I'm doing, that guy's not going to win. You need to have the great jockey needs to have a great horse to be able to win the race. And that's just something that Tomlin has not had in Pittsburgh all these years. And that's ultimately what wound up costing him. If you had Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh right now, you think they'd be 9-8? If you had, prime Ben, and I know Ben's a great QB, but just insert a top 10 quarterback in the league. If they had Justin Herbert and all his playoff woes, Steelers would be very competitive year in and year out. All right. Now that's something that made the John Harbaugh situation, right? Thinking about the quarterback situation, a little more interesting, because John Harbaugh has had Lamar Jackson. John Harbaugh has had a quarterback that everyone in the league would want to have, outside of maybe, Buffalo, Kansas City, and dependent on the year, the Cincinnati Bengals. And he's been capped out right at the AFC Championship game. Usually it's the divisional round for them. The Harbaugh exit was a firing. And you heard Bisciotti come out and kind of amazingly, I guess when you have this kind of money, you could just say whatever you want. Bisciotti was asked, had that loop kick gone in, would Harbaugh have still been here? And he was like, for another week, almost laughing. And it was just not a great exit, seemingly. I haven't looked too much into it, but I thought he found out about it over the phone, I heard. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But that's not how you handle the exit of an 18-year coach, right? Someone who's been a really an integral part of this organization. And then the Ravens, another team, they do things the right way. They're very buttoned up, and Harbaugh is a big piece of that. But Harbaugh had the quarterback, and Harbaugh couldn't get there. Tomlin did not. So Harbaugh's kicked out the door. And when he's looking at this, surveying the coaching scene, obviously he's not going back to Baltimore. Pittsburgh, I have to imagine. Now, look, maybe John Harbaugh would have wanted to go back to Pittsburgh and play against the Ravens. I don't know just how spiteful it got between him and Baltimore. But you look at the rest of the scenery, and it's the Cardinals. Who do they really have? I don't know. Kyler's not going to be there next year. You have the Dolphins. Tua's probably going to be gone, right? Who else? What were the other teams? The Raiders. Maybe like Mendoza. That could be a spot. I actually think the Raiders could be a team that turns it around faster than you think if Mendoza's good. The Browns. No, clearly you don't want to go there. That's a nightmare. So the Giants wind up being a team that actually have a lot of nice pieces. They have the defensive line that everyone loves. They have Malik Neighbors. You like Scadaboo at running back. You got the left tackle. And then ultimately, this is all going to come down to Jackson Dart, where now the Giants have an adult in the room. And that's very important because the John Harbaugh signing doesn't indicate to me, oh, Giants are back. Because you see people out on ESPN. A lot of people are saying, this is the best thing to happen to them since their Super Bowl. And in some ways, I can agree. But also, this is not the magic elixir that's going to fix everything for a Giants team that has the second worst record in football over the past 5 years. They have a half-game lead over the Jets, which just shows oh my gosh, how bad it's been in New York. It has just been horrible for Jets and Giants fans. I used to have a lot of friends and family who are Giants fans. And I used to hear from them about the Giants all the time. We used to talk about Eli Manning. Used to talk even Daniel Jones, Saquon, how great Saquon was. We get texts. I haven't heard from my Giants friends about the Giants in a long time. Haven't heard from my friend Mike. Haven't heard from my friend Aiden. Haven't heard from my uncle Mike. I saw one of my brother's old friends, John, recently, and briefly brought up the Giants, just shook his head and walked away. And they're embarrassed. They won't even come outside. They won't even talk football anymore. That's how bad it's been in New York for a long time, not just a couple of seasons. This has been outside of the Daniel Jones year, which was clearly a fluke year if you paid attention to it. The Giants have been god-awful, embarrassingly bad. And Harbaugh coming in, at the very least, what you're going to get is someone who knows what he's doing and someone who's going to represent the organization well and someone who's going to have control of the situation. John Harbaugh is a very good head coach. There's a reason everybody called him as soon as he was fired. But he's not an offensive guru the way Ben Johnson is, or Kyle Shanahan is, or Sean McVay is. And in today's NFL, that's what you want. So there is some inherent risk in taking the approach of, okay, we want someone to get us back on the right track. It kind of feels a little bit, it's a better version of what the Raiders wanted with Pete Carroll. Someone to get them back on track. And that clearly didn't work out. So this is not a for surefire slam dunk going to work thing. And I'll bring it back to where I was talking about Tomlin. You need the quarterback. The Giants will continue to suck if Jackson Dart is not good next year. Even with John Harbaugh. Even with Todd Monken coming, right? And, Todd Monken, I know, didn't give the football to Derrick Henry. Some people don't like that. Todd Monken's done a pretty good job over the past few years. Lamar won MVP. Lamar could have won MVP in 2024 as well. But that's Lamar Jackson. You have a great quarterback, you're going to win football games. Unless you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you literally don't invest in and you have nothing on defense. Most teams with great quarterbacks win. So that's what this comes down to. Harbaugh chose the Giants. In a sense, Harbaugh chose Jackson Dart as someone he believes in. And the Giants are, they're a flagship team too in the National Football League. If you look around, it's teams like the Giants, it's teams like the Steelers, 49ers, the Packers. If that job were to be open, I'm sure Harbaugh would have been interested. And I'll talk about that in a second because there's some news on that front as far as LaFleur goes. But yeah, I mean, and it's a good move. It is a good move for the Giants because you needed an adult in the room. After I've argued with my friends about Dable, I don't like the coach who's freaking out on the sideline, screaming at players. I didn't like the medical tent thing with Dart. Dable had some success, and he's obviously a brilliant football mind, and he'll be a great coordinator somewhere. But I don't want him right now as my head coach. I want someone who's composed. I want someone who, I want someone who's going to be able to have control of the situation. And that's what John Harbaugh will bring you. And that's why the Giants give him $20 million a year. I mean, he's tied with Reed now for top of the market. It's amazing how much coaches are. I did not realize coaches were making $20 million a year. I mean, right now, like Ben John, we'll get to in a second with LaFleur here. And that was one thing about Marcus Freeman, right? The Notre Dame head coach, because I listened to his press conference this week. Actually made me feel pretty good about Freeman staying at Notre Dame. Is you look at the openings that came up this year, it is the Giants. It's the Steelers. It's Lamar and the Ravens. Those are great. I mean, those are great places to be if you're a head coach. And Freeman turning down all of them because the Ravens reached back out. I believe the Steelers reached back out. That shows to me, okay, this might be more than a one-year thing, which a lot of Notre Dame fans are afraid of. And I, if I were the Giants, I were the Steelers, the Ravens, I would go after Freeman. He might not be the X's and O's guy that everyone wants, and he's a defensive-minded guy. But man, I'll tell you, he is a great culture, unbelievable culture builder. And some of these teams just need it. Like the Giants would have been very smart to hire Marcus Freeman, in my opinion. He would have been a great hire because then you got to nail the coordinators. You just have to. But if you do get those guys right, the Giants would turn themselves around under Marcus Freeman. But to me, it seems like if he's willing to turn down New York, Pittsburgh, and Lamar Jackson, in all likelihood, we're talking about someone who will be at Notre Dame for a long time to come. The last thing really that I want to talk about here was Matt LaFleur and what's going on there in Green Bay. LaFleur and Tomlin were both praised by Aaron Rodgers after the Sunday night loss for Pittsburgh, where Rodgers came out and pretty much just said, the league's not like it used to be when I first joined. You have guys who consistently win the way Tomlin and LaFleur do. Guys the locker room loves, like LaFleur and Tomlin have, or had in Tomlin's case. Those guys usually stay around and you keep building. But in today's NFL, there's just this constant pressure to win immediately. I mean, it's everything in life, right? Like the instant gratification it's no joke. Everyone wants things immediately. There's no patience anymore. And that can be very damaging. If the Packers fire LaFleur, it might get worse, right? You have no pun intended, you have a nice floor with Matt LaFleur. And it's something that you shouldn't take for granted. And now it seems that they're a little caught up in negotiations about the longevity of the contract. The money, it seems like he's going to get somewhere around $14 to $15 million, which would put him, let me just see the range. 15 million would have him about Kyle Shanahan, Nick Sirianni, Sean McVay territory. Those coaches, they're 6th and 8th, right? 2 tied for 6th and then 8th in the league with $14 and $15 million a season. And when LaFleur first got to Green Bay, he was making $5 million. Now he's probably in the $8 to $10 million range is what it seems. And coach contracts, the way they generally work, they're fully guaranteed. So what it seems the Packers are doing is they're trying to tack on a year or two to this contract as an extension, and LaFleur wants the guaranteed. He wants the 5-year guarantee, the deal Ben Johnson got. 5 years, $68 million. He wants, or it might have been more than that, 13 times 5. Yeah, 65. Liam Cohn, 5 years, $60 million, or $12 million a year. Harbaugh, right? $100 million over 5 years, $20 million a season. He wants that long-term deal. The Packers are a little less willing to give it to him. Something that could lead to, as we've seen some reports, are that the Packers decide to actually trade him. They decide to move on, but since he's under contract for another year, they trade him and they get some picks. And that's when you see teams maybe like the Cardinals or the Browns or the Raiders, whoever it might be, ears perk up a bit. Okay, we can go after LaFleur. Like that would be someone they would all want on their coaching staff if he was let go. So we're going to have to see how that plays out over the next few weeks. If I were Green Bay, I know that after the Chicago game, all the Packers fans wanted LaFleur fired. I know Ziggy on our show said that he would fire LaFleur too. I'd probably give him the deal. I'd probably, and then you know what? If it just all goes to shit, you figure out a way to get out of it. I think I'd give him the big contract. The outpouring of emotions from the players, that said a lot to me about how they feel about this guy. And it wasn't just backup players coming out and saying like, oh yeah, I love playing for him. This was Jordan Love. This was Micah Parsons. This was Josh Jacobs. Every single person you put a microphone in front of them in Green Bay didn't even need to put a microphone in front of them. They were, I think Micah tweeted, right? How he called LaFleur. These guys love him. And that to me is something that I wouldn't break up for next year. Because when the Packers had everyone healthy, there were times where they looked like the best team in football this year. And there is risk. There is risk if you're going to bring LaFleur back. He's made a lot of the same mistakes over the years. That it could happen again. And now you're sitting there next season saying, what are we doing? Like, how are we doing this again? Did we really buy back into this? It also could be a world where you're like the Vikings with Sam Darnold and you let him go. And whoever you have coming in just ain't the guy. And if you don't have the guy, it gets bad really quickly. Now, this is another situation where the Packers have the quarterback, so they'll be fine. But what did I say before? With the great quarterback, that great coach can help push them over the line. If you have a bad coach, he can hold back a great QB. It can happen. And this is where it gets very delicate for Green Bay. Invest everything in the guy that you think could be the guy, but has shown signs of not, or go down the unknown path. I'd probably keep the guy that you think and have a good feeling about being the guy. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be tricky. And then last but not least, we have the national championship in college football coming up on Monday. A tentative go Hoosiers. I'm rooting for my cousin. My cousin Nicole went to Indiana, and I'm a good cousin. I've chosen to be a good cousin, and I'm rooting for the Hoosiers. There's a piece of me that's like, oh, can I, like, really, do we need Indiana to win before Notre Dame? And or at least in my lifetime, right, with the in-state, it's sort of a rivalry. I'm rooting for Indiana. It's really not even close. I like the Hoosiers. The moment there's football between Notre Dame and Indiana, same way that basketball's not a rivalry between us. One of us is really good at one thing, one of us is really good at the other. Who cares if Indiana has a great football season out of nowhere? I'll root for them. Again, good cousin. So I'm rooting for the Hoosiers. What I fear for them is that when I truly hate a team, right? Think about this year. I've clearly made it known that I don't like the Miami Hurricanes as a Notre Dame fan. The other teams I've really disliked, and I don't think Miami quite falls into this category. They don't. But the 2009 Saints, I hate them. Hate everything about them. The 2017 Eagles, I like Nick Foles, but I hate him. The teams that I hate who own my team typically go on to win the national championship or the Super Bowl. And this is something that I've been monitoring with the Hurricanes over the past few weeks. They win week 1, right? Sneak into the playoff when they really probably shouldn't have. Then not only do they sneak in, but they win on the road at A&M. They beat Ohio State. And then they have that final unbelievable drive to beat Ole Miss. I leaned back after the Ole Miss game, really after the Ohio State game. I had a number of drinks on New Year's Eve. And even in my impaired state, I went, something might be in play here. Like, this might be happening again. And now they're in the Natty. They're at home. I don't know. It could truly be devil magic against my fandom. Because I can't have them win. They were the one team I said they can't win. Sort of like the Bears now. I just can't have the Bears win the Super Bowl before the Vikings. It just can't happen in my lifetime. The Bears have been so bad for so long. And I'm happy for my friends who are Bears fans that they're having this success. I just can't see them win before me. That would destroy me. And I'm rooting against them this weekend. I'm rooting for the Rams. There's these lunatics out there, and I'm sorry if you're one of them, but you are if you do this, where you root for your rivals after they're eliminated. Just an insane, bewildering concept to me. but some people do that. I want my rivals to get destroyed. I want them to be humiliated. That seems like the right way of thinking. But tell me if I'm wrong, because I know Jack's a big Steelers fan who roots for the Ravens when the Steelers are out. So like to really get this straight, after Tyler Loop, let's say he makes that kick, Jack would look me in the face and say, I'm rooting for them next week. If the Packers walked off the Vikings, I would look at my friends and say, I hope they lose by 100 next week. I don't know. Is that a me thing? Like, am I wrong about that? I would really like to know. Because I hope the Hurricanes get trounced. But that's not how it usually seems to work against me in these situations. So, I don't know. If the Hurricanes win, you know why. We'll be back Saturday, probably Saturday night. Maybe it winds up getting pushed to Sunday. But we'll be reacting to the divisional round. Thanks for watching.